Madam Chair, and I want to echo the remarks of Kathy McMorris Rogers. I hope that we can develop a privacy standard. It's something that's bipartisan. It's long overdue. I know it's tough to do, but I think we need to proceed down that road. For me, I'm a dad, and I'm also a granddad, so I sort of like that duck, duck, goose analogy at the beginning. I know where you were coming from, I think. But all of us want to protect the most vulnerable, and that's our kids and our grandkids. We want to make sure that there's every tool in that toolbox so that we know what's going on and their lives can be protected, because it's no longer just don't talk to strangers. There's a lot of strangers that are out there, and that's why we need to make sure that those tools are there. And so, Mr. Duffy, I want to thank you for your service, for coming before this committee to help us understand the ins and outs of protecting our nation's kids online. One of the concerns that I hear about most from my constituents, and there's a lot of them, is the way that the big tech is impacting the mental health of our kids. So I just wonder if you can walk us through a step-by-step of how you interact with a tech company, and how does that change when there is a threat to a child that's viewed as urgent. And I would just recommend that you get as close to your mic as you can, because despite this being the high-tech committee, the connection's not all that great.
Thank you, Representative. I'm getting as close as I can, so hopefully this audio sounds a little bit better.
I knew it wasn't the Florida accent. I can understand that better than Louisiana.
Thank you. So really that relationship with big technology is only engaged upon an incident occurring. In the case of a missing child, or the case of child sexual abuse material, or a threat of violence, or an act of harm, we begin that engagement with technology. Outside of that, other than some of the big technology companies, the startups and a lot of the newer companies, we have very little engagement with them. Typically, our engagement when it begins is through legal process, as we begin to try to investigate the issue at hand.
What's the volume of the number of cases that your department looks at every year? And has it been increasing? What's been the trend line?
It has been increasing, specifically as it relates to the child sexual abuse material. We here in the state of Florida alone, law enforcement as a whole in the state of Florida has received over 18,000 leads reported to us by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children alone in 2020. That means law enforcement has to put eyes on each one of those leads to determine the ability to investigate those with limited resources.
And where was that number? Where were you, say, 10 years ago, or when you started? I know you've been with law enforcement for a while, but as I hear from my law enforcement folks, I mean, they shake their head in terms of some of the doors that get opened and some of the nasty stuff that really gets out there. How has that changed from when you started?
Exactly. When I started, it was a lot of what the work we did now was through the U.S. Postal Service, because the online world didn't exist. And the online world that existed was not as widely popular as it is today. So we are seeing exponential increases as companies come online and today's youth and others begin to leverage this platform to communicate, which ultimately results in children being sexually abused online, sextorted, and impact their mental health.
Can you tell us one particular story of where things worked out?
There's been a few where we've gotten instances of somebody saying, I'm watching a child being sexually abused, or a child was abducted, and through the use of technology, we were able to work with the provider to determine a location where that child or individual might be. And through the use of technology, we were able to locate that individual to prevent further abuse or recover the missing child.
And are you able to interact that with Amber Alert?
We very much so are.
Well, thank you. Again, thank you for your service. Appreciate the hearing. I yield back.